UN organization, organizations represented by UNICEF, but also we have civil society, and of course we have the private sector. I must admit, I must say that in as far as the panel composition is concerned, this has been very well thought through, in the sense that when it comes into the issue of sustainability, it's actually not only one particular dimension, but it's a lot of actors have to be together. The government has to be there, civil society and academia as well have to be there. So when we talk about the sustainability here, I see that in as far as the panel is concerned, that's very well composed, so we don't have any problem with that. So once I've been able to introduce the panelists, we will need to welcome our host, that is CRS. Of course, the country manager is the one that is going to tell us a little bit about the CRS, the activities that the CRS is doing in the country. But more importantly, she's also going to tell us the main objective of this particular kind of the event. And then after that, I'll be calling the presenters for these two case studies in Mbeya. And then we're going to have a little bit of discussion on these two presentations, try to reflect some of the challenges in as far as the case study are concerned. And then after that, we are going to have the panel discussion, this ably composed panel who are going to give us some thoughts, their perspectives and experience in as far as sustainability of rural water supply is concerned. And then after that, we are going to have a kind of general discussion in the sense that it's going to be the opportunity for you, audience, of course, to contribute to some of the presentations and the panel discussion that has been aired. Therefore, you have to make sure that in the course of these presentations and panel discussion, try as much as possible to pen down all your comment and contribution such that when the time comes, then you are able to do that. And then once we are done with that, it will be some sort of wrapping, concluding. And of course, we are going to have a gifty presentation to the presenters and all that. And then the day, or rather the event, is going to end up with the networking, social networking, refreshment. I think CRS has been generous enough that once we are here for the hard work, then we need to relax a little bit to know who is who has gathered in here. So after that, now is my time that I would like to introduce the panelists and the presenters. If I start with the panelists, for panel number one, where it's going to be composed by the government academia, I'm happy to introduce to you Honorable Simon Kanyemka. Can you stand up, please? A big clap for him. Simon is the director for Legal Services Unit with the Ministry of Water. He serves as a legal counsel to water sector and other affiliated institutions in the water sector. Another panelist, panel number one, is Engineer Lydia Joseph. Engineer Lydia is the Assistant Director, still with the Ministry of Water, but he's under the Service Delivery and the Management Support. Makofi kwake. Our next panelist, panel number one, is coming from academia, is nothing other than Professor Komakech. Komakech is coming from Arusha-based Nelson Mandela Institution for Science and Technology. And then the other panelist is a water engineer from Ruwasa, that Engineer Davis Roimam. So these are the panelists for panel number one, coming from the government and the academia. And also we are going to have panel number two, where of course we have the UN, which is going to be represented by Frank Wodhiambo. He is the chief of WASH, UNICEF Tanzania. And then we are happy to have Betha Muhepela, who is the project manager, working with RIS. And of course, we have David Galach, who is coming from Water Mission Tanzania. Last but not least in the list, we are privileged to have a person from the private sector, And like I mentioned in the beginning, when we talk about the sustainability, it's also very important that we need to take the private sector on board. And here we have Swaleh Hassan, who is the business development manager, coming from, this is from Gadgetronics in Arusha, which is based in Arusha. So that is how the panel is composed, and these are the panel members. Of course, we are also going to have the presenters for the two case studies. Without further ado, I would now like to welcome our hosts, CRI's country manager, Kelly, who is going to tell us a little bit about the CRI's, the activities, and also the objective of this event. A big clap for her.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard. I'm not usually accused of needing a microphone, but I know we have people online, so I will honor that. As Dr. Richard said, my name is Kelly Hines. I am the country manager for Catholic Relief Services here in Tanzania, and I first want to thank all of you for being here with us today. This is CRS's 60th year, celebrating our time working in community with the local church, but also our local partners, the government at a local level, but also at a central level. And so to honor 60 years of commitment to Tanzania, CRS has been hosting a series of learning events throughout the course of this past year in the sectors that we feel are most relevant, where we have worked most consistently over the course of the last 60 years, and where we think are instrumental to the development of the country, and where the country and the government have made significant investments and commitments to the future of the country. With that in mind, WASH, water and sanitation initiatives, are clearly a critical part of the development of Tanzania. And so we're really thrilled to have such an esteemed panel joining us here today. So thank you so much to our government counterparts, particularly to those of you who have traveled from Mbeya, who we work with so closely at the field level, part and parcel of the way that we work country as an agency, but also in the country program, is to work communities in a participatory approach. That means that community members are fully involved in the design, fully have access to give input, and then ultimately, have access to give feedback that we work. That's as true in WASH and as important in WASH as any other sector. And so we are really grateful to have the case studies here for us to pick apart a little bit, but also for us to have representatives from those partners in the region to be able to do that. I want to acknowledge our donor at this time as well. The current project that we're working on is funded by Charity Water. And with Charity Water support, we have been successful in implementing reconstruction, renovation, and construction of 93 public water points in Mbeya, but also 400 private water points across households in Mbeya. So that is the achievement of just 2 years. We hope to have many more years of support. It goes without saying, as I mentioned, part and parcel of the way that we work is working with the local government. And the local government in this case being RWASA, working very closely with the Ministry of Water and RWASA, and meeting RWASA where they are insofar as working with their designs, ensuring their buy-in, also having 10% of the labor volunteered by community members. This is all very important parts of the strategy of the way that we work to ensure ownership, sustainability, and commitment to the development of the communities where we work. So you guys are not here to listen to me. I could go on for days, but I really, really want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for actively engaging in this afternoon. Really ask your questions, challenge us a little bit, challenge our panelists. Don't challenge me on WASH, challenge those guys. And thank you again so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Kelly, for welcoming remarks, which is coming from CRS. I'm advised that the participants who are just coming, were walking in, they should just fill in the front seats, such that when you have the late ones, they can easily fill the back seats. So, yeah. And also the most important thing is that if you think you are not very comfortable with the language of this event, that is English, then you are advised to collect the headset at the back. We have this interpretation device for Swahili, I think is channel B, and for English is channel L, but you are strongly advised that you need to pick the interpretation device which is available at the back. So feel free to go there if you're not comfortable with the English. Thank you very much once again, Kelly, for that welcoming remarks. And it's now we need to move on. We are discussing this sustainability issue. And the focus here is the rural setting. Before we dive deep into some of the issues, the dimensions very important for the sustainability, first of all, let's hear the stories surrounding the water supply services in a rural setting here in Tanzania. And to do that, we have Innocent, Engineer Innocent from, let me just check the name again. We have somebody who's going to provide us with an overview of rural water supply in Mbeya region. That's Engineer Vincent. Engineer Vincent, please come here. And we would request, in the interest of time, as you see in the program, the maximum time that has been allocated for you is 5 minutes. I'm not sure whether you're able to do that, but try to make sure that you give us only the key messages on the following two issues. Number one, we would like to hear the sanitation, the water supply services currently in Mbeya, looking at the functionality of water supply schemes, but also highlighting what are the challenges that you guys are being faced. I think you will be able to do that in 5 minutes. Try to make sure that. Big clap for him.
Okay, my name is Engineer Vincent. I'm coming from Mbeya. Here talking about the overview, supply and sanitation in Mbeya. As we know, Mbeya is among the 31st regions in Tanzania. And here, about 75% of population in Mbeya living in the rural. And the rural is the one we are talking about, the issue of sustainability. Yeah. The coverage of water supply in Mbeya is 66.1%. This 66.1% is come from 151 schemes, which has water points about 8,000, and the water household is 3,000. With the target of having 85% in 2025, the Mbeya region has its targets to contribute about to construct about 33 water schemes. That's reach that coverage. But the coverage in the rural, as we saw there, in Chunya, we have 47% up to now. In Kiela, with 70%. Mbarari, with 54%. And in Mbeya district, 57%. Rungwe district, 74%. All these villages, out of 533 villages we have in Mbeya, 376 villages have water, piped water system. That's about 7% of the villages in Mbeya. Again, after those are completed projects that could give that coverage. If you go to the ongoing projects, in this year, we have 33 projects going on at various different status. If this is completed, it will raise the coverage of Mbeya for 14.6% contribution. And this will save 343,210 people. If you go about sustainability, in Mbeya, the issue of sustainability is challenged as we talk here in rural. And the main problem in this challenge is due to inappropriate technology, lack of capacity for the operators. Here, operators, what we are talking here is CBUSO, community-based organizations. And this CBUSO, community-based organization, are the one who dealing with the operation and maintenance of our projects. Another problem we have there is a community willingness to pay. You know, yeah, people in Mbeya, they were using free water, but due to the policy, our policy of 2002, now everyone needs to pay for the water. Now to change from free water to water for payment is a problem. Now that's what's a lack of community to move to pay for the water they are using. And then other issue, there's the issue of political. There, some people they want to people to be for them, so that they can say that they give them free water. That's another issue which cause the people to not to change rapidly from the former method of getting water free to water for payment. How to deal with this? One, actually, is to change it for those projects with inappropriate technology. Now we are moving to move for solar pumping. Those for diesels, change it to solar. Another one is to install prepaid meters for those who are get water free. They have to use prepaid meters, and again to build up capacity for those users so that they can have the ability and the awareness of what is important is to pay for the water. And the last one is just to raise the awareness to the political leaders concerning about the issue of payment of water. The last one is to say about the contribution of CRIs in Mbeya concerning about the issue of increasing access to water. CRIs in Mbeya now is in three districts. Mbarali district, Chunya district, and Mbeya district. Now they are constructing projects, and for the completed projects, contributed about 1.1% of the regional water coverage. And these projects, other projects, 5-year projects coming will contribute about 5% projects. So they will contribute about a lot in our regional coverage. So we thank very much for CRIs for working with the government in ensuring that the service is raised. Thank you very much for that.
Well, Sansana Vincent, makofi tena, big clap for. Yeah, 5 minutes. I think you've been able to keep time. I understand that you're supposed to have discussion at some point in time, Vincent. But before I forget, because now I'm becoming old, so I can easily forget some of the very important issues that I've just wrote it down. I think what is very clear here is that, yes, progress are being made in as far as improvement of water supply services. The case for Mbeya, we see the coverage, of course, yes, 66.1 vis-a-vis the target 85 come 2035. Yeah, despite the fact that you have all this very good progress, but I think we have to think about the sustainability issues. And for Mbeya case, we see some of these challenges. Number one is about the technology. Technology in the sense that what they have as a technology, to them, they're describing to be inappropriate in some context. And maybe you can also explain to us what is that exactly mean by inappropriate technology. That's very important. So you need to note it down so that at the point when we have the discussion, you can also respond to that. But the other main challenge with regard to sustainability, the institutional arrangement at the lowest level, where we're talking about the CBOs, they have the limited capacity, or rather they are lacking capacity. I would shy away using the word lack. I think there are some things which are happening. So limited inadequacy capacity, that should be the right way. But you have to tell us exactly what areas of capacity that these CBOs are missing. That's very important. The issue to do with the willingness to pay. So willingness is one thing, but also maybe you must also think about the affordability to pay. The issue, socioeconomic aspect of that could be also one of the issues that you need to think it through. But what we are seeing here is that most of the time people they're seeing that water is the gift from the God, and therefore that level of willingness to pay is always very, very big. And therefore some of the issues have to look into that. Definitely. Nowadays, water is a political issue. It's a political. It is heavily politicized because I think that's the moment that politicians actually they get political marriage for them. Political interference, political issues, that's something also is threatening the sustainability in a way, and therefore we have to discuss that. One good thing in as far as the story from there is that despite all these, the challenges that I have, at least they have measures in place, of course. They are thinking on how to change using the appropriate technology. They are going solar powered, at least to issue to do with the cost and all that kind of stuff. They're also doing the capacity building. They are installing the prepaid meters, such that at least people have to pay for the service. Again, this is also the question that we might want to discuss, because it could be that you just install prepaid meters, still the willingness of people to use that could be also another problem altogether. Thank you very much, Vincent, for that. I think now we need to move on to the second presentation. That is going to be given by, let me check. Of course, we are going to get the experience on the ground with regard to operation and maintenance of rural water supply, and there is the one that is going to be given by Liza. Liza, do we have Liza in? Liza, please. So we would request that Liza highlights us on the following key issues with regard to operation and maintenance of rural water supply projects. We would really want to hear how is it that operation and maintenance activities are being undertaken? How is it that you deal with the system failures? The issue of tariff collection management, that's very important. But at the end of the day, again, we would like to hear what is it that you have as the challenges with regard to operation and maintenance of these rural water supply schemes. Big clap for him as he prepares to come to.
Habari za mchana. Kwa majina naitwa Innocent Liza. Ni mwakilishi wa chombo cha watumia maji kutoka kijiji cha Ikwizi, wilaya ya Mbeya.
2, 3. There to discuss on sustainability of water projects in rural areas, and Ikwizi village is one of the beneficiaries of the CRS project, and shortly our village of Ikwizi never had tap water, but for a long time people used to get water from a nearby village in Songwe, which is more than 14 kilometers to and fro. And the water was not even safe because it was a river that had creatures like crocodiles, and it was not a safe place for people to fetch water. And this water used to bring us a lot of diseases like stomach issues and all other waterborne diseases. And sometimes people had issues. And because of a long distance, we used to use animals like donkeys and cows so that you can be able to reach the river place. And it used to take us more than 6 or 7 hours to and fro. And that used to waste so much time because we could have used that time to do other development issues. But we used to spend that much time to go and fetch water for our uses at home. So when it got to 2019, the government came and dug the first borehole. And after that, Charity Water through CRS in 2022, they also came and built another borehole and also put in place a source a solar project that is actually giving us water, and we're able to get boreholes in our primary school and other 8 places in our village. Through the presence of this project, we have been able to receive capacity building as the committee, which was actually created by the community members under CRS, and we held open forums, and we were actually chosen by our fellow community members to be their representatives in how to be sustainable, in the sustainability of this project. And through these committees, we also met with other community members on ensuring the sustainability of this project, because we understood that in order for this project to be sustainable, people need to contribute, and we agreed that each family should contribute 2,000 Tanzanian shillings per month in order to make this project sustainable. Even when we encounter any challenge as far as infrastructure is concerned, we can have something to be able to sort out. And through the presence of this project of WASH from CRS, we've been able to do other development projects. We used to spend so much time to go and fetch water, but even in our school, our students have access to clean water, and they've also received capacity building on the area of WASH, and also we have been able to receive good toilets in our primary schools. And initially, the students at primary school, they were not able to get lunch because of the lack of water, but now the students in our primary school are able to access lunch because there is water. So that has also affected their level of passing in their education. And also, us as the community members, we've been able to engage ourselves in other economic activities because of the presence of water. Activities like vegetable gardens in our homes, and we've even been able to have vegetable gardens in primary school because students are able to get water, so they're also able to farm and get vegetables. And these projects have helped us to be able to do many things at a go, because initially we would wait 6 to 7 hours, but now we can use that time to do other things which are going to actually benefit us. And also, through this project, as the committee, the operations committee, we have been working closely with the village leadership and other leaders in the village, like the elders and the traditional leaders, so that we can create awareness and help people on how we can protect these projects and also the area of contribution, because it is actually a new concept, especially in the kind of the community that I'm from. And through this project and working closely with the government leaders and the traditional leaders, we've been able to achieve this to a greater extent. And through this project, we have encountered a number of challenges in this project. First and foremost is the protection of the sources of water. Just like I said, we are farmers and we keep cattle. So initially we never had tap water. So all these water points that have been constructed in our villages has been a challenge, because people used to take their cattle, their animals in the water points. And sometimes the issue of contributing to these projects, because in our community, people live in families, and someone might have 3 or 4 wives, and they live with their children, and all of those people would want to contribute only 2,000 shillings, which would have been a difficult thing when it comes to sustainability of this project. But another challenge that we've encountered is the distance of the money that you contribute. We actually take this money to our bank account. that we have an account at NMB Bank, and all this contribution is taken to the bank just according to the government policy. So the bank is actually far from our village to the bank. It is more than 90 kilometers, and it cost us 30,000 Tanzanian shillings to and fro. And also another challenge is buying of equipment, because sometimes we can have, sometimes we spend so much time to look for materials or to fix these things. And another challenge that I mentioned earlier that we've been able to solve through having discussion with these families, and we created awareness and for them to understand what do we mean by a homestead, so that they can be able to contribute, because their contribution is also going to help them in the sustainability of this project. Other challenges that we meet at Ikiwamo, we have a mechanic there who is actually taught and who was with us from the beginning of the project until now. So whenever we encounter any challenge that we cannot really sort, we communicate with these people from Rwasa who actually help us. Lastly, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the people from Ikiwamo village through CRS and SAWA for bringing this project to our village that we're actually benefiting until now. And we believe that few days to come we'll be able to access electricity, and we are also able to access water. Thank you so much.
Big hands for Liza.
Zero.
We still have the issue of willingness to pay, changia pale. I think you heard about that. And I think they agreed. It looks like the whole process for setting tariff was participatory, and it's clear that they now have 2,000 Tanzanian shillings a month. Liza, itabidi utuambie kipindi fulani hiyo 2,000 mlikubaliana vipi? Yani ile 2,000 kwamba kwa mwezi kila kaya itoe 2,000.
3.
That we'll talk later, but we are saying is one of the challenges which are being encountered.
2. 3. 0.
These are pastoralists, and therefore sometimes you have these livestock watering directly into the infrastructure, the issue, but also the availability of financial services within their proximity. They will just walk a long distance, and also the cost for, of course, getting that. I think importantly is the issue of supply chain, in as far as the technology is concerned, the availability of spare parts. And I'm happy that Swale is here. Is going to tell us a little bit about the supply chain. It's really a big issue, especially in rural areas. That is sometimes you're going to have a very small spare part broken down. How is it that you're going to get it? It will be a challenge. So that is a challenge that I have. But despite all these challenges, they are already doing something. They have the measures, which of course the effectiveness is something that has to be looked at. So now this marks the end of this part of getting the stories from these two case studies. Of course, we had this water supply, the situation, the status in Mbeya region. And now we have just heard about how is it that they are doing the operational maintenance for Ikiwamo. And I think we have got 5 minutes for discussion questions before we get into the next session where we are going to have the first panel. Vincent, unakumbuka maswali yale nilikuuliza? Remember those questions? Maybe mnaweza kuja hapa mbele kidogo. You can just come in front pamoja na Liza. Just a little bit of discussion on the case study that you had. Kaa tu hapo mbele. Kuwa comfortable. Sasa, Vincent, you mentioned one of the challenges, sustainability is inappropriateness of technology, but I think we wanted to hear much more. Describe for us, what is it exactly mean by inappropriate in what particular aspect? That's number one. Lakini kingine kwenye capacity, you said you have limited capacity for CBOs. Kwa hiyo tueleze what sort of capacity, because I think in this room, we have also people from academia would definitely like to chip in. These are the guys that they do a lot of research, the COMACH, a lot of this research. So we're interested to see some of those areas for the academic institutions, research institutions for that matter, to some sort of dive deep into whatever they're doing to come up. Kwa hiyo utatuambia hiyo, na Liza, hii 2000 ilikuwa mmekubaliana kwa namna gani? And then after that, I think 2 questions will be enough, and then we move on.
Hello. Nisema inappropriate au nifafanue vizuri kidogo?
2, 3.
It is appropriate in many projects that we are creating in the villages. We are using bat fusion machines, which need a lot of technology. So when you compare with the stakeholders there, it becomes a challenge to them. After fusion, you find that when there's a breakdown, you have to disconnect. And those machines need once you increase the horsepower, you find that when you add the supply, you encounter problems. So in the villages, it becomes a challenge. We have witnessed in particular projects. There's one project which is assisting 16 villages, which when it malfunctioned, it cost them over 400,000 shillings to repair. So you find it becomes very difficult and expensive for the villagers. That is one issue. I see you move from fusion to an inappropriate scheme to solar power. There are issues with energy problems. On energy, you find we had 2 projects which were being run by diesel fuel. So the diesel machines, which have been there for over so many years, but since the villagers cannot purchase diesel, it becomes obsolete in a way.
So, Liza, how did you get to the 2,000 Tanzanian shilling contribution per month? And as I said, we're pastoral keeping a community, and even to arrive to this figure, they actually wanted us to start by contributing 500 shillings. And because it was a new concept and they had never seen the importance of it, so we used all we can to convince them so that they can give 2,000. So we also actually reached a conclusion that we can be able to increase that contribution or reduce it. And also fixing our decision to use solar equipment is because we knew that we wouldn't get the cost of buying electricity frequently. So that has helped us to lower the cost, and also people were able to see the importance of this project so that they can be able to willingly contribute. So in your community, many of you have large number of livestock, and I believe 2,000 shillings is not a big deal. So anyone with 2, 3 burn.
Zero.
I have a suggestion to Leza. Nadhani kwa nini zisijengwe bakuli kwa ajili ya kunyeshea?
3.
Don't you have special mechanisms of protecting the water sources in the area of sanitation so that people can be able to access water, clean and safe water for home use, but also to be able to help those people with livestock at the time that they need to take their livestock to go and access water. They should be able to access it in time instead of having to wait for people to finish getting the water. Then they can be able to take their livestock. But also on the area of manager from Ruasa, you talked of the issue of education to political leaders. What about the society that are the consumers of this water? Why don't we give them awareness on the cost, the maintenance, the repairs, and all the cost that is involved in sustainability of this project? The technical know-how that is needed in order for them to protect this project so that they can understand the cost of fixing those taps. The water systems, sometimes these pipes can break because of the water pressure, but they also need to understand and their mindset needs to change. So we need to actually maintain these water sources so that the coming generation will be able to find these water sources still in place. So we should actually create more awareness so that they can understand the importance of protecting these water sources. And these are recommendations coming from the audiences. And I believe
2, 1, 0.
First priority, while we are planning and designing our water systems, we also need to include other water users. So livestock is really very important and all that. So when we do the planning and design, not only we need to provide the domestic points, but also the water traps. Sindio? I think that is very important and the information. Ukishapata hela nyingi za kutosha, then mfikirie sasa kufanya nini? Kutengeneza hizo
3.
The special basins or water troughs, and it's a very important point. Vicent, and creating of awareness in the area of capacity building. This should be well structured and what she has actually talked about is something very correct. And it's that in the CB, you need to go through what she talked about. You need to involve all of them from the village level. So she has actually talked something very crucial. So it's not something that will happen overnight. We need to go through the process.
One, 0.
Around the world. A few questions that were asked online. I think some of them were already addressed, but here are the questions. Have you started the implementation of prepaid meters? I think yes. If so, how is the reception? Any success or challenges? Question 2, I think it's for Engineer Vincent. This year is the halfway point of SDG, but only 61.66% coverage for water supply in Beya is achieved. What strategic plan will be made to cover up the remaining so that to achieve water for all and everyone as a human right? So strategic plan for Beya to achieve SDG. The other one is about the cost of prepaid water meters can be high for some of the community members. Would there be any other options for lower cost technologies? So whoever is able to answer that. The other one was somehow touched upon, but what support is available to CBOSOs for major maintenance in the days to come?
Okay. So, Velo Vicente, prepared meter nataka kujiba Eliza, Yeah. So I think one of the measures mlisema kwamba mnakuwa prepaid meters, ndio? So vipi mapokeo ya watu kuhusiana na prepaid meters?
Kuhusu prepaid meter bado tunatakiwa tutoe elimu kwa sababu msingi wake umejengeka tangia mwanzoni kwamba walikuwa wapata maji bure. Sasa wana shift kutoka eneo hilo kwenda kulipia maji.
Sawa.
Na ukiangalia kwa wale maeneo ambayo yalikuwa na shida sana ya maji, mfano eneo la wilaya za Chunya, Mbarari na Mbeya sehemu, baada ya kupata maji wamelipa. Wame respond positively. Hakuna shida. Sehemu ile ambayo kuna maji hakuna shida ndiko kuna problem.
Sawa. Kulikuwa na swali jingine alisema hivi. Sababu sasa hivi tuko kwenye kipindi cha SDGs ambayo ni Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
Na nyinyi coverage inaonekana ni 66.1. Si ndio?
Yes.
Lakini inahitajika for all, yani watu wote wapate. Mna mikakati gani kuhakikisha kwamba hiyo mnaifikia?
Of course kwamba kama nilizungumza pale kwamba nilisema kufikia mwaka 2025 kwa mipango iliyopo inatakiwa tufikie 85%. Na ndio maana naona kuna ongoing projects zipo pale 33 ziko katika hatua mbalimbali japokuwa display.
Sawa. Kwa hiyo kuna miradi inaendelea.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the strategies that I have in place. They have ongoing. I think given the time that is remaining before the target date, which is almost 7 years from now, is the question for them to accelerate, just to work. Sawa? Yeah, okay. Jamani nadhani inatosha.
1, 3, 0.
Big clap as they work their way. Asanteni sana. Mnaweza kurudi tu huko. Ila Laiza hujaniambia ile kitu tubidi tuongee. Anasema asiri ya chumba.
1, 3.
Not answered me that. Anyway,
0.
Which is for the government as well as the academia. May I request the panelists, Simon, Engineer Lydia, and Davis, pamoja na Komakech, just come in front so that we can have this kind of now discussion about the sustainability. Just sit anywhere. Starting panel number 1. Dear participants, one thing that I would like to request you is that here we are going to have back-to-back panel discussion. Panel 1, panel 2. I'm pretty sure you are going to have quite a lot of questions, contributions. The very most important thing here is for you to pen down all your contribution, that when we are done with these 2 panel discussions, you have an opportunity of just asking any one of those ones. Well, let's start with the Simon. And you might ask me why Simon? When we talk about the sustainability, the reality of the matter is that definitely we need to have enabling environment, the enablers for that matter. Talking about the policies and the strategies and all that. Simon, I know you have been in the driving seat in the development formulation of acts, water sector acts, policies and all that. Can you try to describe for us what kind of policies and the strategies that we have in the country, which in a way are trying not only encouraging, but also promoting the sustainability of rural water supply? Just explain for us the policies and the strategies we have in the government for some sort of promoting the sustainability. That's number 1. But importantly for us is that having these enablers on book is one thing. But how is it that we normally translate those ones into actions? Tueleze. Dakika kidogo tu 2 3. I know. When we talk about the sustainability, in the country, especially in the rural setting, we definitely know that we have enablers for that and don't have any problem. Over to you, Simon.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. It is a very good question, and let me remind you where we are coming from as far as the water sector is concerned. The first water policy was issued in 1991. And at that particular time, the government was responsible for everything from planning, design, implementation, and operation and maintenance. Having implemented that policy for a decade, about 10 years, some challenges have been merged. Then the analysis was done, and it was found that the major challenges were one, that there was an estimation of private sector participation. Secondly, there was inadequate involvement of stakeholders in the community. And thirdly, there was inadequate legal and institutional framework. Now, with regard to the rural water supply setup as a subsector, now these issues have been thoroughly considered in the current National Water Policy of 2002. The current policy has a broad objective with regard to sustainability of water supply, and it advocates that the aim is to improve the health and alleviate poverty in the rural population through access to adequate and clean water. Now, this broad objective has been cascaded down into specific policy objective. And this specific policy objective can be divided just in two. First, the availability of the water, and second, the sustainability part. And on the sustainability part, as I'm referring to the issues which were identified during the implementation of the 1991 National Water Policy, then the policy has put very clear strategies which aim to alleviate those challenges experienced during implementation of the 1991 National Water Policy. One is community participation. In the community participation, it was the policy provide that community should be involved, and that the operation of the water schemes should be done by the community themselves. Then, as a strategy, the policy just provide that the community should be facilitated to ensure that they are establishing the water utilities so that they can manage and operate the water projects. Secondly, for sustainability policy and strategy, that construction of a project is one thing, but it is sustainability so that it will continue to provide the water. It is another thing. Then the policy just provide that for the construction part, the government will continue to do that, but the community may contribute a certain in terms of candy or in cash. But the operation and the maintenance costs should be met by the respective community. Now, another policy strategic issue is that now, in case the cost is very high, then what will be that challenge should be dealt with? Then the policy direct that the appropriate technology. I'm happy that the previous speaker has alluded to it, that it should be looked at, because some of the technologies are very expensive for the community to meet the operation and the maintenance cost. With regard to sanitation part, it was directed by the police that health issues or hygiene and education should be integrated with the water supply and sanitation issues. And the emphasis will be done to that extent. Now, how have we translated? There are almost 13 strategic areas in the rural water supply setup. Now, how are these strategic interventions has been translated into action? Immediately after inauguration of the National Water Policy of 2002, first the government has developed what is called the National Water Development Strategic Plan of 2006, which narrated the interventions, the strategic areas, and the activities which should be done so that we achieve the policy objective. That's one. Then this National Water Strategic Development Strategic Plan was the one which was also translated into legal provision, that some of the activities which will be done might need a legal enforcement. Then some of the areas was developed into legal requirement. And hence, we have in place the Water Resources Management Act, number 11 of 2009. And then for the rural part, as a water supply, we had the Water Supply and Sanitation Act, number 12 of 2009. The other instrument which translated this strategic into action are various regulations, which provided the relationship and the mandates of how the community will be involved and how will operate the projects and what intervention will be done by the government. For that case, the government went further by translating this, because once we were implementing the Water Supply and Sanitation Act of 2009, another challenge has just come in, that even the construction of the project themselves, the arrangement was not proper. Therefore, that is what necessitated the government to review the legal and institutional framework. That's why currently we are talking of the Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Agency, RUWASA, which now has been given more mandate to ensure day-to-day operation and maintenance of rural water supply and sanitation, but also the community-based water supply and sanitation, which have been established through this act, and the regulations have been required to report daily to the RUWASA so that the sustainability are visible for sustainable services.
Okay.
I think that enough.
Thank you very much. Makofi, a big clap for Simon. I think it's quite very interesting to note that in as far as the country is concerned, talking about the sustainability of rural supply systems, already we have enablers. Of course, you mentioned about the I would like say outdated policy 2002, but I think there are a lot of provisionings on how is it that we're supposed to maintain the sustainability, the community involvement, operational maintenance, paying for their services. Those are some of the issues that in a way have been provided in our policy. No problem with that. But also it's very important for us to note that in as far as the translation of these provisions, of course, we have the National Water Sector Strategic Action Plan. Strategic Action Plan. How is it that you're supposed to do this translation? Priority areas, strategic areas have been into there. So I think we don't have any problem as far as enablers is concerned. How is it the translation on paper? But how is it that now we are not being able to do that? It could be maybe a resources requirement. It could be one. The capacities, the skills, the financing, and all those kind of stuff. Thank you very much. Again, like I mentioned in the beginning, if you have questions to Simon, this round, make sure that you have it down. Time will come for you to air your contribution. Now, let me move to another government representative, Engineer Lydia. So I think during the question session, one of the online participants wanted to find out for the case of Mbeya, the figure 66.1, then we are into SDG. I would like to get your perspective from the government. What sort of actions that the government is doing to ensure the sustainability of rural water supply, especially this era of SDG, SDG 6, which is ensuring that everybody, everywhere, they have to have the access, not only to water supply, but also sanitation services. Describe for us a little bit on the actions the government is trying to do, the areas for improvement, even the strengths of the government on this particular front. Karibu, Engineer.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you, the organizers, for having me here. As I would like to build up straight on the Director of Legal Services, what he has said. Actually, when we talk of sustainability, we usually talk of what is there to be implemented. What I mean is, if you have good policies, you have good laws, you have good regulations and the institutional setup, and you really put work into making them efficient, then you are sure to achieve sustainability. So it is the basis of everything. Now, coming back to your question about the coverage. The coverage in rural water supply from Mbeya region and in many other parts of the country, indeed, is not very good. We are not yet there. Not only the SDGs, we also have national plans that requires us to have higher percentages of water supply coverage in different, in rural as well as urban. But the government has had very good plans for the past few years. All of us can witness accelerated construction of water supply projects in different parts of the country. And recently we have come up with a strategy to have projects which are bigger. I mean, that can cover a huge population at once. Like you have the 28 towns water supply projects, which is in its initial stages, is constructed all over the country in 28 different towns. And also the country also is, the ministry also is planning to have something like the national water grid. We are dreaming of having a national water grid, just like the grid for electricity. We really want to use our large water sources like lakes and big rivers to supply water towards the central part of the country, whereby we have scarcity of water supply, fresh water sources. Therefore, as far as these percentages, there is a big difference, but I am sure in 2 years' time, we are closing the gap very quickly. I don't know where we will be, but in a few years, I am sure we are going there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lydia. Coffee, Lydia. Yeah, so it's only that during the discussion, I would like you to reflect on one most important thing. That in as far as the achievement of SDGs is concerned, we know already we are off track. That's because of two main reasons. So we saw this, the global public health issue, the COVID, of course, just disrupted each and everything. And now we are seeing the war crisis, Russia and Ukraine. Those are some of the reasons that, of course, are being cited to be the reasons for not being able to achieve. As a result, of course, they are doing what they have, what to call the acceleration framework. They have these 5 accelerators. So I would also like to hear from the government perspective, to what extent are we just adapting those accelerators in the way of trying to see how is it that we are going to achieve? Because like I mentioned in the beginning, 7 years remaining before the target date. We are not supposed to do the way we are doing things, but rather we have to accelerate. So I would also like you to reflect on that. Asante sana, Lydia. Now let me go to Davis. Davis, the issue of community-based water supply and sanitation services, which of course was mentioned, we see the challenges to that is the limited capacity in a number of ways, the financial management. Some of the people are even citing the organization structure itself. I would like to get your perspective. What should be the best way to operate these CBGOs so that at least we are able to achieve the sustainability of water resources? Meaning that the current status quo way of operating the CBOs is not really giving the results that one would like. So there should be a different way. And this is what I talk about, the innovations part of it. Please tell us a little bit on that.
Thank you very much. I just don't want to assume that everybody here knows what CBUSO is. CBUSO stands for Community-Based Water Supply Organizations, right? Now, these are entities that are prescribed in the law, in the Water Supply and Sanitation Act number 5 of 2019, which also established RUWASA. Now, these entities, first of all, let me put it, RUWASA is responsible for establishing the CBUSOs, registering the CBUSOs, monitoring the CBUSOs, regulating CBUSOs. Now, for them to operate in an environment where they can achieve sustainability of rural water supply in rural areas, first of all, we need to make sure that they have the capacity to operate the schemes that are constructed by RUWASA, because RUWASA initiates, in collaboration with the community, initiates the projects, constructs the projects, and as soon as the projects are completed, it has to hand over the project to the CBUSO as prescribed in the law. So the CBUSOs are the ones that are given the mandate to operate on a daily basis these water supply and sanitation infrastructure that has been constructed by RUWASA. Now, the CBUSO structure, you have to understand the CBUSO structure this way. It has two parts, main parts. It has the governance part, and it also has the management part. The governance part has some slots or positions that are filled by these positions are, for example, you have people in the community, in the rural areas that are elected according to their position in the society. They enter the governance part of the CBUSO according to their position in that area. But the management part of the CBUSO consists of mainly two people, the accountant and the supervisor, who is also the technician. Now, depending on the size of the scheme, the CBUSO can have a minimum of 2 employees making up the management part of the CBUSO. But it can also have more than those 2, depending on the complexity of the scheme itself. So depending on how large, on the number of villages that are being served, the CBUSO governance part may decide to hire more people to cater for the needs of the scheme that they are running. Now, before they go to hire more people, they need to make sure that they have enough resources to pay these people. Now, where RUWASA comes in, I said RUWASA establishes them, the CBUSOs, and registers them. And now we have to build the capacity of these CBUSOs. What do I mean by capacity building? We provide training, regular training, based on, we conduct a capacity needs assessment to establish where and what needs to be capacitated on the side of the CBUSOs. So once we identify which gaps are there, we either do it ourselves, by ourselves I mean, RUWASA has 3 levels. We have a headquarters, we have regional offices run by the regional manager and his team, and then we have the district offices run by the district manager and his team. So if the capacity that needs to be built upon the CBUSOs can be facilitated by any of these levels, starting from the district level, then staff from RUWASA will be sent to dispatch that need that has been identified to a particular CBUSO. So this is the, it starts from the region, from the district level. If capacity is there, then they will provide, they'll build the capacity respectively. If that capacity is not at the DM office, then it will move up further upward to the regional manager's office. And if they don't have that capacity, then they will consult the regional, the HQ office. Or rather, the HQ or the regional office, because these are the two people that have a mandate to outsource the service. If it's not within RWASA, we work closely with the University of Dar es Salaam, with Water Institute, with all these other stakeholders, NGO, local and international NGOs that can provide the capacity that is needed to the CBUSO. So we can procure the service through the normal procurement procedures, and then the team will be dispatched to provide the capacity that is needed. So, and basically we provide the capacity, we provide the training on issues of management. For example, preparation of how do you call them? The financial statements, for example. The CBUSOs have to account on the revenue that they have collected, on the income that they have received, either from government or from own source, the expenses that they have done. We also build capacity on the management of these water supply and sanitation schemes because they have technicians. So we have to build capacity depending on the technology that has been used in that particular scheme. So, for example, Engineer Vincent here talked about inappropriate technology. I would like to put it this way. Once a scheme is constructed, it may have as many equipment or tools in that scheme. For example, you may have generators, solar panels, pipes, joint by using whatever means were available at that point. So you would expect that the CBUSO that will be given that scheme to operate has capacity, has staff who has expertise to operate the scheme efficiently and effectively. So RWASA, when we are handing over the scheme and we are formulating the CBUSO, we have to match these two things. Here we have a scheme, and here we have people who will run the scheme. We have to match what expertise, professionalism, experience, equipment, and all those things that need to be on this side so that we can operate efficiently the scheme on the other side. So that's what we do. So, but we build capacity on many other things. But to come back to your question, just to finalize, sustainability, I just wanted to touch on this. Sustainability does not come after you build the scheme. Sustainability has to be integrated from when the scheme is being initiated, when the project is being formulated. So that aspect of sustainability, many people look at it at the end, but it has to come from the beginning. You have to integrate it so that you can provide for example, RWASA has given a directive for all the new projects that are being constructed in rural areas. CBUSOs have to be given something that we can call a startup package, because, for example, for 6 months when the scheme is being handed over to CBUSO, they don't have enough money to operate the scheme. So they have to have money to pay their staff and then operate the scheme. Also, they need equipment, they need office. So we have instructed the DMs, the district managers and regional managers to make sure that when they are establishing the scheme, when they implement the project, when they're designing, the total cost of the project should include construction of offices, provision of basic tools and equipment that are needed to operate the scheme. And so that when the CBUSO comes in, they just start running instead of walking. So, I would like to clarify as many things as possible. Yeah. For example, the issue of tariff. Yeah. RWASA has a clearly stipulated procedure. In 2019, in August, RWASA, through its board of directors, published what we call a tariff ceiling, depending on the technology of each scheme. For example, for a gravity scheme, it's 20 shillings per bucket, 20-liter bucket. For a solar scheme is 30 shillings per 20-liter bucket. For a grid scheme, that's electricity, it's 40. For a scheme is 50 shillings per bucket. So these are tariffs that need to be adhered by everyone across the country. There's no exception. So I was a bit uncomfortable, but rather this is a family matter. I was a bit uncomfortable when the gentleman from Ipuizi said the family, pays 2,000 shillings per homestead, if that's the fair word to use. So that's a general thing I wanted to clarify.
The CBO, this community-based water supply organizations, I think, I think he has just narrated quite a lot of things with regard to the CBOs. The process, each and everything is just in place. The only challenge that we have is it's not really yielding what everybody would like to expect on that, but at least it's been charted the way a little bit. Sustainability, these organizations, is not supposed to be like a one-stop thing. It should be a process, starting right away from the beginning and all that. But importantly, we have this terminology they call co-creation or co-design. That means those ones who are responsible and the other ones who are providing, they have to work together so that at least you have the ownership, and then at the end of the day, you have sustainability. So if you have questions to Davis, please make sure that you jot them down. You need to ask him as well. Let me turn to a man from academician. Komakich. When I was just reading your biodata for that matter, you indicated you have this research authority on urban, inclusive. Urban, that has been your area of focus, but we are talking about the rural setting here. So can you tell us how that should be done? When one is doing the research study on rural context, how is it that you do it, and at the end of the day, you do the publication? That's number one. But the second thing, I would like us to tell us, I would like you to tell us the research areas that need to be undertaken. And those are the ones that at least they have to inform the decision-making mechanism when it comes into a number of issues, one of them being the technological options. We saw the presentation from Bear. This guy is saying one of the challenges is inappropriate technological selection. And that could be because these guys, they are not adequately informed on what is that supposed to be. So you are a researcher, I know, Komakich, just tell us, how should we make sure that the research areas, which one should be focused on, especially in the rural settings that are going to inform the decision-making, number of issues, the technological options, guideline development, policy review, and also formulation. Asante sana, Komakich.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think we are addressing a very important topic, which for maybe quite some time, sustainability issue is not new. I would reference maybe 80s, 70s, where there was a shift from government-centered service delivery to community service delivery process. I think for the guys who have been around for a bit will remember that there was the issues about village level technology. Different kind of technologies have been proposed to solve this problem, and it seems we're still debating the same things. One part is that society is not fixed. People change. You bring water, and then all of a sudden it's rural. They become urban. You bring a water point, then people want in-house connections. So there is always a dynamics when we talk about sustainability issues. So it's a big question. Now, coming back to your very first questions in academia, how do you decide that this is what needs to be researched? Of course, one of the things that people look at is what kind of services do society need? And I pick from our motto, which says academia for society and industries. We do not only focus on building capacity, that means training, but we also try to develop technologies that would meet those demands that are there in the rural area, urban areas. Of course, you reference things like CWIS or CWIS, urban sanitation planning. I think that reference critical things here that I feel like is cutting across the discussion is, where do we start from if we want to develop a service? I think the main issue is, do we start with the technology or do we start with the people? Because they are the one going to manage the technology. So is it a co-creation process? So these are all research questions that need to be understood. Of course, academia is there to support that. That's what we do. And I also want to go back to the policy aspect, that we have been implementing the 2002 policy for the last 20 years. So what have we learned? Yeah, what are the basic issues that we should take forward in the next 7 years to realization of the SDG? So that's where research is important, to look at those key questions. Does the community-based water supply organizations, are they the best model for service delivery in rural areas? Can we compare with what the urban areas are doing? In other words, urban areas are not actually far off than the rural people, because if we talk about urban areas, yeah, non-revenue water, which is water that is not generating revenue, is quite high in most of the urban areas, and the urban areas are getting a lot of subsidies. So there are things that cut across the rural-urban divide that we have to look at, and we can only do that by digging deeper and trying to understand. I would then come to the issue of technology choice. I mentioned a little bit on the Vlum and other Indian Mark II technologies that have come in, and I've seen prepared systems are coming in. I think the main issue is sometimes it's not necessarily just inappropriate at the time, but it's also we could redefine that we have to select technology that are fit for that purpose. If we have technologies that do not match, so if you take a prepared systems, and I've seen prepared systems, there are some which we have seen in Arusha where they were installed, and then 2 days later somebody came and wanted the solar batteries. It was not about water, but the solar batteries was very interesting, so they came and take out the solar batteries. So there are elements that need to be revisited when we are talking about sustainability or technology choices. I could talk a bit further on the issue of capacity, because this is a very important aspect. I think when we design technology, it's very important that we assess whether this is something that need to be professionalized. And I know that the world is moving toward there. In the 80s, it was about community-based. And remember, many of these communities, they are volunteering their time. So there is toward current phase, there is a lot of emphasis toward professionalization. So it means certain service could be delivered by professional for the benefit of the of community. So you don't have technologies that you spend a lot of money and then 2 days or 1 year later they're not there. So we should not only look at that the policy prescribed that or the law prescribed that, but we should be able also to move along the spectrum and try to find the right options to better sustain, so that we don't count what we said have already been reached while there's a lot sliding back. So those are other things, but there are questions of justice which we can also talk about, but let me leave it for now and wait for other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Big clap for us. Always we need to rethink. We should not be static. Let's be dynamic. Not only be caught up by the prescriptions of these policies and all that, but I think it's very important. Try to see what is actually coming all along. Thank you very much once again, Komagich, for that. I would now go to the second round of the questions, where I will start with you, Simon, again. We see, and that is the reality again, that when it comes into provision and water supply services, we have a number of actors. At some point in time, we might end up having the fragmentation, the way we provide services. Therefore, the most important thing will be the coordination. I would like you to tell us a little bit on how is it that the coordination is being undertaken at the government level with a number of actors. That's number one. And the other thing is it that we have written protocols or guidelines on how is it that we are going to do the collaboration among different actors in as far as rural water supply service provision is concerned? Please describe for us on that.
Thank you, moderator, for the good question. Frankly speaking, in terms of coordination of different actors. As you may agree with me, that the water sector is a concern of everybody and every sector. No one can live without water. Therefore, every person is a stakeholder in the water sector. When you come to the type of coordination, I can categorize the type of coordination just into that legal requirement and the moral, some sort of. In the legal part, when we are talking of sustainability of rural water supply, in its chain, we are talking of the water sources. Because without the water source, we cannot have the water to supply to the community. Therefore, when you come to the water sources, we have the Water Resources Management Act, number 11 of 2009, which is responsible for governing our water resources at the sources. Now, according to this act, there is what is called the National Water Board. Then we have the basin water boards at the basin level, and we have the catchment at catchment level, and we have the Water Users Association at the grassroots level. In this act, at every level of governance, there is participation of all stakeholders. And now there are some legal challenges in terms of limitation of the number. But we have tried our best to develop some sort of regulations so that at the time of, let's say, we need a representative of environment or natural resources, then they have a forum so that they can sit together and vote for their representative to be appointed in the board. Our assumption that once a person is in the board, he can assist the board to deliberate on those specific matters concerning that sector. For the part of the basin water boards, we have also the member from the water supply and sanitation authorities that is represented therein. Therefore, we have some sort of coordinating these stakeholders using those instruments. For the water supply part, when I come directly to the rural part, the umbrella organization is the Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Agency, RWASA. And due to the background challenges which necessitated its establishment, the board has a representative from various agencies. We have a representative from the Rural Energy Agency, REA, due to the power challenges which we are facing in rural areas. Therefore, we aim that when this person is in the board, he can assist the body to deliberate regarding the appropriate power which can be used in the rural water supply. We also have a representative from the Contractors Registration Board to assist the board in deliberating on issues of contractors who previously were found to build the water projects in substandard manner. Therefore, we have a person in. But also we have some other representatives of agencies and so forth. Therefore, to conclude on this, there is some legal provisions which entail coordination between the different actors. But I can say that we don't have a unified framework which provide for the coordination of all stakeholders in one document. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon, for that. Coffee. truly we see that the coordination, which is one of the key in as far as sustainability is concerned, is already taken care. And you have these boats, the national boats, the basin water boats. I see that. And I think of the recently I've heard about this what called the National Multi-Stakeholders Forum, which is normally being conducted. So those are some of the protocols that we have in place, at least to ensure we try in as much as possible to coordinate all the various efforts towards achieving the sustainability of rural water. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, if you have this fragmentation in the way we contribute, we might end up doing the duplication of the efforts rather than synergizing all these. And I think that's the key as far as coordination is concerned. If you have some questions to Simon for this second round, please jot it down. The time will come, and also you need to ask him or bombard him if you like. Now let's move to Lydia. Of course, it's clear that when we talk about the sustainability, rural water supply, water resources is key. And definitely we see a number of rural water supply projects, very good water supply infrastructure. Then at some point in time, you are told that the sources dried up. Tell us a little bit on the challenges of water resources in the country, number one. Number two, we understand, and also this is the point that was raised earlier, that when it comes into water supply services, not only we focus on domestic, but even other water users. So we'd like to see how is it integrated across various water user sectors, and what is the governing plans to some sort of trying to address that. And the very last one, which we'd like you to tell us, of course, climate change, vocabulary of every foreigner now, and the rural setting. To what extent the rural water supply system is impacted by the impact of the climate change?
Thank you very much, moderator, for this other chance. Before I go to your questions, maybe everybody here would agree that among the sectors that end up in construction of infrastructures, water supply, or rather the water sector, is among those sectors which, when you complete the construction of the project, the work begins. Actually, it's not like roads or other things whereby once you construct a road, people can pass according to how they decide. And even if the road has some portion which is not very good, you can have a diversion and people can pass through that. You can start using a road before it is complete or finished, but not in water supply. That's why we have sensitivity in this particular sector from the time of construction up to when the services are being delivered. And actually, when you hear about water acts, which are being modified time to time, they are mainly dealing with service delivery. Very small part, it could be like 20% of the articles, are they articles? In the Act, the sections in the Act deals with the infrastructure, but most, like more than 75%, they deal with how things should be. The project is completed. So this is to say that sustainability is very important. And like colleague says here, it is linked to it is linked not only to quantity, but also to the kind of operation you are doing. So when we come to quantity, that's where we link to your question about water resources. Because without sustainable water resources, you will not have sustainable water supply. Even if you have very good infrastructure, if you have very good infrastructure, you have those filters, you have the intakes and everything. If the water comes to a point whereby the quantity is not enough, obviously it will show. Therefore, water supply has a very strong link to water resources. And in this way, we are, fortunately, we are in the same ministry, seeing water supply and water resources just from the Ministry of Water. And we are working hand in hand in different setups, like in water boards, for basins and the water boards for water supply utilities. Both of these have an element of both. Like when you have the basin water, you will have somebody from the water supply just to speak about the needs, the requirements from the water supply side. Similarly, when we have a water supply governing board for water utilities, for example, and for the RUASA, which is for rural water supply, you really have people from the water resources division, or rather the practitioners who are doing the water resources. Therefore, there's a very strong link between supply and the water resources, because the water supply is only about infrastructure, but the real water is kept through water resources management. That's where you will keep the water. And I would like to talk also about climate change, the effect of climate change, particularly on water supply services. It has a very big effect. You see, you could design your supply infrastructure using certain data. Researchers, you know this. For 10 years, due to climate change, these data don't correspond to what you are to the assumptions. To the assumptions, it misbehaves. Sometimes you find you have your intake which is not taking water because water has below the expected levels, for example, or rather you have bigger infrastructure than the water you can abstract. So we have a very big problem with the climate change. Also, you could have floods, which you didn't design for. A very big pipeline saving a certain town is passing through a certain, I don't know, a river or something. You have anchored it, expecting a certain force, but again comes a lot of more than you expected. I think you understand this. Therefore, it can uproot your system and bring you into a lot of trouble in case of water supply. Therefore, when we are considering sustainability of water supply services, we really have to incorporate all these considerations from water resources, from climate change, but as well as from the setup, from the legal framework, Thank you very much for this chance again.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lydia. Makofi tena. Clap for Lydia. So the issue of integration among different various water sectors, I understand the government has embarked in the development of what you call IWRMD plans for these basins. Maybe at some point in time I wish to comment on the implementation status of these plans, because I think those are very important as far as the integration of water resources across various water sectors is concerned. Now I would like to move on to our next panelist, Davis, still on the community water-based supply these organizations. The reality of the matter, again, Davis, is that in the country, across the country, you have very well-performing organizations and poorly performing organizations. Under such a scenario, I think it's always very important. You need to have what you call sharing, knowledge sharing, best practice sharing. I would like you to tell us, how does it happen for these organizations, number one? And number two, can you tell us how is it that this sharing of knowledge best practices are informing the development of new guidelines and all that in the country? Over to you, Davis.
Thank you very much. I mean, the CBUSOs, we usually have a program of having to share the experiences from one part of the country to the other part by taking maybe the best performing CBUSOs and taking them to other places where they're not doing very well. For example, we have CBUSOs in the northern region, in Kilimanjaro, in Arusha, And we have the other CBUSs, for example, in the central part of the country, Dodoma, Singida, which are not doing very well. So we have the sharing of experiences by taking people from other parts of, of the country and taking them to go and learn from other places. So that is done. But that's number one. Number two is we have a system, a platform called Ruasa Service Delivery Management System. It's RSDMS. It's it's a platform, it's a web platform where we collect various data that comes from the ground, that comes from the CBUSO level. CBUSO keys in the data in the system, of course, through the district manager's office. Now, through the data that has been collected in this platform, we do analyze. We analyze the data. We do analysis of the data. And we rank the CBUSOs that are performing, to check their performances from the lowest performing CBUSOs to the highest performing. And we have categories. We have 4 categories. The best performing CBUSOs are in level 1. The worst performing CBUSOs are in level 4. And the performance is pegged on their ability to do operation and maintenance services of their scheme. That is, are they self-sufficient to do operations and maintenance of their, of their scheme that they have been entrusted to operate or to run. So through that system, the data that we collect, we do analysis and we prepare monthly, quarterly, and annual report. The final report of which is being sent to the ministry for the lessons learned, the challenges, the successes of the sector. Through all these channels, we are able to pick and point all the things that we are doing well and the things that we are doing not so well. And then those things are used as, learning points. So we share them with various stakeholders who can help us. And that's how they find their way up to the ministry level, where they can influence the policies and the act as well. So that's basically it.
Thank you very much. And you see the impact on that? You need to respond at it during the panel discussion, whether the impacts you have on that particular aspect. The last panelist for this round, Comagate. Contribution of academia to the sustainability of rural water supply, number 1. And what do you see the opportunities are there for partnership between the government as well as the private sector?
Thank you very much. I think one of the role of academia for ages has been training, giving skills. And I think this will continue to be there. A critical mass of professionals are required. There are good numbers of estimate there. What kind of professional do we require in the water sector to reach the SDG target? If you estimate that, you see that we are still far off. So there is a contribution that the academia can make to the water sector, not only water, but water and sanitation sector. The other element that is very important, I think, is about, we already have people there, they are trained. You and I are coming from academia. We start with certain foundation, but when you're out there, reality may be different, but you have your degree. So there is a need for extended learning that people continue to learn. But I think over the years, training has changed from a more theory to problem-based learning. So I think one of the areas that academia can contribute is aspect of problem-based learning to try and see if RUASA has issues that let's say they are going to design a project. It could be an opportunity to train a large mass of people or professionals in that sector. The major contribution that I think in the past maybe did not come out quite clearly is how academic research can contribute to programming of what the water sector is doing. I want to peg this around what others have called project preparation. How do we prepare ourselves before we start putting our money to implement a particular project? And there is room for academia to work with the different stakeholders to define that. but also to reflect on the policies that are being prescribed, the laws that are being created, and to engage in that dialogue. I mean, we are here trying to create that dialogue. There is a very good room for us to discuss or dialogue on the key elements. Is the direction the best way for us to achieve the SDG target? So those are the roles of the academia, and I think we have a big opportunity there to contribute.
Thank you very much for that. A big clap for all. You will agree with me that this indeed was an esteemed panel of experts and leadership in the various areas of competence. See how is it that they've been able to contribute. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you need to make sure that you have the questions and all that. Time is not on our side, and I'm advised that at least people have been sitting for a long period of time. You may need to energize a little bit. And I'm made to understand that we have staff from CRIs who would like to do that. The energization. Somebody who's ready for that?
Okay. Okay, let's go. Touch your stomach. Touch your eyes. Touch your ankle. Touch your head. Touch your waist. Touch your neck. Touch your eyes. Touch your nose. Touch your cheek. Okay. We're looking at your arm around. Okay. Listen and not look. Okay. Touch your toes. Touch your head. Touch your toes. Touch your face. Touch your knees. Okay, much better. We're gonna do it a bit faster. Okay. I have a suggestion. Just close your eyes. Perfectly. Okay. All right. Faster. Touch your toes. Touch your head. Touch your waist. Touch your stomach. Touch your eyes. Touch your palm. All right. I think we're awake now, yeah? Yeah.
Yes. Now we have to move on, and now we need to go into our second panel. The most important thing is that for you guys, you think you have some questions direct to any one of the panelists, keep it until the time will come that we can open the floor for discussion. A big clap for the panel. I now invite the panelists for panel 2, starting with David. That's Water Mission Tanzania. And the next one, big clap for David as he makes his way to the stage. And then Betha from CRIS, big clap again. Then Swale, a gentleman from private sector. Why not big clap for him as well? Last not least, representative from UNICEF for the AMBO. Yeah, I think the rules of the game just the same as with the panel number 1. They are going to, of course, engage with me, moderate some of the questions, and then after that, we are going to open. Starting with you, David. From the first panel, what is clear is that in as far as sustainability is concerned, definitely collaboration, cooperation is very important. And I think the most important thing is to have the support from the local stakeholders. And I think that's the big question. It has just come to a time that whenever somebody is just going to a particular community, would like to provide the services, but you're not getting the support that you really need to get from the local. How do you think that could be effectively done to get the effective support from the local people? Over to you, David.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to CRS also for putting this event on. I think I've already learned a lot, and I'm excited for the rest of the event. I think it's an incredibly important question. I liked that we went through some of the history, not just of Tanzania, but of the sector itself, starting from whenever the government was in charge of everything. Then we moved to community-owned systems, COOSOS. Remember that before 2019. And now we're into some more of a professionalized era. Now, I think that it would be a mistake to look back and say that that section of community-owned wasn't. We didn't learn something from it, and there wasn't a reason for doing that. And actually, it came out of this fact that there's for ownership from the community, because the reality is a lot of the problems, they're coming from the community, right? These issues, who knows better about the issues of the community than the community themselves? And so we've moved to this era of professionalization. And I think that it's a great era to be in, and I think that we're learning as we go. But there can be this feeling that you're either professionalizing or you're engaging in community ownership. And I think that is a false dichotomy. It's not true. You don't have to do one or the other. And I think that we need to be thinking about how do we engage the community and develop that ownership while professionalizing. Because that's, I think, how we're going to be able to move forward. And so it starts really from the very beginning, all the different stakeholders, even in the planning, the assessment, not just the village leadership, but even the people of the leadership. I appreciate CRS's participatory approach. I agree that needs to be a big part of what we do. I've seen a lot of failed projects that they didn't fail necessarily because of technical issues or operation and maintenance, but they failed because the community wasn't engaged in the community or in the project. And so this participatory approach needs to go beyond just identifying sources and identifying resources, but even into understanding about what we talk about, willingness to pay. We said, what is the willingness to pay? And a lot of that comes from understanding about what goes into a project. So one of the aspects as we're developing even our business models for the communities and those prices, to walk through with the community, what does that look like? What does it cost to operate a project? What does it cost if the pump breaks in 5 years, in 10 years? How much money do you need to have in the bank to be able to do that? How much water do you expect to sell? And then you can work backwards, work through the business model to develop a price where everybody's brought along in the system. So it starts not just from the design of the project, but even as you develop your systems of operation and maintenance, doing that along with the community. So I think that's the big one.
Yeah, it is the very big one, like I just mentioned. But again, and this is something that I would like you to comment during the panel discussion, that often more than not, we have this, that if we really would like to gain the support from the local stakeholders, you have to be trusted. Mm-hmm. How do you create that trust? Yeah. So that's something that I would like you to comment during the panel discussion, not now. Let me now move on to Betha. We're still talking about the sustainability, and I'm pretty sure that CRS has done quite a lot in terms of implementation of rural supply projects, systems for that matter. Seen the two cases from there. In your own perspective, what do you think CRIs should continue doing? Some sort of increasing or enhancing the sustainability of rural water supply? That's number one. And then number two, maybe you need to tell us a little bit. What do you think we have as new ideas, new approaches, the tools that are supposed to be there to make sure that we continue implementing the rural water supply systems? I think the key here is that let's have a new way of thinking, the innovative approaches, tools, whatever we have, so that at least we need to make sure that we have the sustainability of rural supply. Over to you, Betha.
Thank you. For the case of sustainability for rural water supply, for CRS, I understand that a lot has been said by the previous panel, but I will try to be brief, not to repeat what has already been said. For CRS, our strategy is based upon the collaboration and engagement from the process, during the process of developing our projects. How do we develop our projects? Because sustainability is not after the project has been implemented. During the initial phases, we need to make sure that it's the community themselves that are driven to change, that they should accept that the way that they are getting water maybe it need to change. Like they should not be spending over an hour just to fetch water, that they could be using less than 5 minutes to get water for their needs. So if we have that community realize their needs, then we move forward with our implementation. So the initial stage of engaging the community, making sure that the problems or the challenge are being raised by the community and not us as CRS facing the community and raise to them that you have this problem, we want to solve it. So it's the community themselves to realize that they have that challenge and they need help, but also they need to be part and parcel of that process. Also, another thing is collaboration. We are collaborating with government at local government authority, but also we have RUASA. How we integrate with RUASA as an entity, government entity, but also local government authority, because they also have a role to play when we talk about sustainability of infrastructure, water supply infrastructure in rural community. So when the community realize their problem, and then we sit together, because the world has changed now. The community, they have a lot of information. They know what they want. So if we want to change the water supply situation, perhaps in a village, then they already have ideas of what they want their system to be, how they want it to look like, the kind of technology perhaps they've seen somewhere. So for us now, it's our job now to guide them in a technical and professional way, like supporting for ideas, what could work well or what could not work well with that community. So that is how we ensure sustainability. But also during the implementation, as Kerry mentioned earlier, that we are using a participatory approach, that the community, they also contribute at least up to 10% on the implementation of this activity, not in a monetary way, but through other performing other activities like contributing in terms of labor. But also, we've spoken about CBOSOs and how they're being developed. I understand there are government guidelines already formulated on how we can initiate and develop CBOSO. We are collaborating well with RUASA to ensure that we establish, we train the CBOs to make sure that they're able to take up the project once we have completed the construction. So they are being established at the beginning so that they're being part of the parcel of the implementation process, for them to gain knowledge on how that system has been constructed, to be aware of all the parties of the system. So when we exit and we handed over the system to RUASA, as for the government, it's the role of the community to operate and maintain the system, so they understand the whole system, how it works. And also, we have spoken about the issue of tariff correction. It also, I understand that with all the challenge that it have, but also it's something that we are looking at, even though we are facing challenges with community based on how they've been used to throughout their process. But now it needs like an adaptation on how also the community can adapt the new tariff, but also the guideline. I understand now RUASA is shifting from tariff being suggested by the community to a business model for CB also to operate. We understand that might bring changes to how the tariff are corrected, but also increase in strengthen the monitoring of tariff collection to ensure that they are used for dedicated purpose, like effectiveness in correction, but also management in terms of use.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Coming to your second question, like how we should change.
The new thinking, what should be the new ways
new ways of thinking. Yeah. So personal, my suggestion will be like now as development partners, we should shift from implementing the charitable model that maybe we have used to implement for many years, but now we should come to right-based approach in our implementation, where community should be the center to understand their responsibility. They should be accountable, but we should also empower the community to make sure that they are able to take up those infrastructures in terms of maintenance, in terms of operation, that will guarantee a long-term sustainability. Thank you.
Amazing, Betha. Big clap for Betha. Shifting from charitable based to right based. And I think that calls for change, like you just put it. I think you put it correctly that one of the key issues about the change, and for me, I always just say behavioral change. Behavioral change is one of the issues that will be looked at carefully. And maybe during the panel discussion, during floor discussion, I would like you to comment on how is it that we are going to have this change of behavior for the community, so that, because even the issue of unwillingness to pay for the service because of behavioral change and all this kind of stuff. Thank you very much, Betha, once again for that. Now I would like to move on to a private sector guy. These are the people that, for them, business-minded people. They see the challenges, they transform the challenges, the opportunity for them, money-making in a way. Swalehe. Yeah, you see now we have the issue of technology development and all that kind of stuff. Now, from private sector perspective, how are you ensuring that the new technologies which are coming into market, one, they are first understood? Because without being understood, there's no way where those technologies are going to be adapted. How do you ensure that the new technologies are being understood in the community, but also being adapted at the scale? That's number one. Number two, the two case studies presented, especially from Ipuizi village, they indicated that one of the challenges was the issue of spare parts availability in the supply chain. They mentioned that whenever you have a small part of whatever pump is broken down, I mean, it takes years for them to fix, and I think that's not very good in a way. So you can have the system infrastructure sitting for a long period of time without working, and then it needs a lot of effort for you to. How do we ensure the supply chain in as far as the new technologies that are coming up into place? I know you're a business person, you're always thinking from business perspective. Everything for you, you're looking into money. Over to you, Swale.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. So I'd like to start with your first question. And well, for us, it's, I would say, in as much as it's business, okay, but business also is not sustainable if the opportunities out there or whatever we do are not sustainable in themselves. Okay, so what we normally do is we work very closely with the manufacturers and other players within the industry, okay, to see, basically just have an assessment need and analysis of what is required. Right now, technology is moving so fast, okay, in that most of this technology is not actually really needed out there, you know. For example, if you're looking at water coming in different pressure. If you're looking at water level for your boreholes and all this, in as much as these are needed by people like RUASA and the likes and the Ministry of Water, it becomes so expensive that the project itself becomes, in terms of from the financial approach, it doesn't make sense anymore. Okay. We do a lot of training and capacity building, especially whenever we work in the rural setting, where number one, we prefer working with the community directly. We do not take 15 people or 10 people from Arusha or from Dar es Salaam to go to site. Okay, instead we take the main people, the welders, the electrical engineers, the mechanical engineers. Those are the ones who go there, and they supervise with the help of the CBOSOs and or the local community, and of course our employer at that particular point. And while we are doing this work, we take in the community people, okay, and work within the labor laws to give them jobs and train them while how do I put this? So, for example, if we go to Mtwara, okay, to a certain village, what we will do is we will go with our team of maybe 4 people plus the driver, and then we will request the local community from the chairman or from the committee, please give us 6 people who can do ABCD, for example, concrete mixture, laying down the cables and the pipes, someone who can put up the solar panels up there. And with this, it becomes more of, owning the project, So this is one way that we look at it. Number 2, we do a lot of pilot projects, especially when there's new technology. For example, if there's a solar water dispenser, what we do is we engage some of our NGOs or government sector who we've worked with a long time with, and tell them, look, there's a new product and we would like to test it. We would like to keep it, we will give it to you for free. We will install it for free. This is in conjunction with the manufacturers to test it out there to see how it is performing, get feedback and take it back to the manufacturer for improvement. This is one way, another way that we look at it. Then we have partnerships, okay? We would, it's something that we are looking into, where we can work with, for example, the vetters out there, the universities out there, and bring this technology to these vetters. Okay, we had a case study, and it's still something that we want to implement. For example, there's what we call the small scale holder farmer pumps. Okay, and we thought of it. This is a plug and play system. Instead of us charging people, especially after installation, instead of charging you maybe a certain amount to just come and diagnose the system, why not train these villagers, especially someone who has gone to VETA, train them so that 1, they can get sustenance out of it, okay, and 2, it's a local solution. Whenever they're called by, their villages, they can quickly respond to because they're around, and 2, we are giving them a way of sustenance whereby they can actually sell these pumps and maybe get a commission out of it and things like that. And at the end of the day, they also become technically gifted with that particular technology. One thing that I think we have we mostly have a problem with is regulatory support. Okay, and by regulatory, I don't mean specifically from the Ministry of Water, but I feel it's high time that maybe the government looks into these value-added taxes, and all these type of taxes, whereby we can work to reduce the cost of this technology. And this is something to look into. We also look at local manufacturing. So, for example, there are some components, especially electrical components like the control panel. Okay, there is no need of us importing something from abroad to do it here. Why not train the university students, the technical college students to do this, where we can have specialized training sessions, for them. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
In terms of spare parts, we are currently working with a couple of manufacturers. I'm sorry to say this is not a water-based manufacturer, but it's something that we will implement within WASH as well, whereby what we want to do is instead of training resellers, okay, because we are distributors and we are also project implementers, instead of training resellers, and this is an idea that we actually picked up from one project that we are working with TIB and Ruasa, whereby instead of training these guys, let's train technicians, how to use our systems, okay, how to design our systems, and all that. And with that, it means since GX cannot cover all of Tanzania, okay, it means that we can have at least someone from every region, okay, who can supply these spare parts.
Okay, thank you very much, Swale. Big clap for him. The issue of new technology, how is it that you disseminate it, they have been taken, and the whole issue of supply chain and as far as parts is concerned. Odhiambo, you are the last. I would like you to be very brief because time is not on our side, and I would like to open the floor for discussion. See, the audience has quite a lot of things to contribute to that. UNICEF perspective, how can it contribute to the sustainability of rural water supply? That's number one. Number two, we have the issue of financing. It's an elephant in the room, and as far as sustainability, rural water supply is concerned, what are the opportunities and the barriers for financing in rural water supplies, and what measures should be put in place, some sort of addressing the challenge of financing to ensure the sustainability of rural water supply system? Over to you, Odhiambo.
Okay, thank you for your two questions. I first of all want to start by congratulating CRS on your 60-year anniversary, and to thank you for the service you provided to the people of Tanzania over this time. It has been quality service. So to start with your first question, the role of the UN. Well, as you know, we've been talking about the SDGs throughout this afternoon, and these are a set of 17 goals that were agreed by the UN General Assembly and were agreed by all 191 member states. So these are goals that are owned by governments. They're not owned by the UN. The UN is just there to provide support to governments to achieve those 17 agreed goals. The goal of interest this afternoon, of course, is SDG 6, water and sanitation for all. And what we as UN agencies do is to support the government to achieve the various targets under SDG 6, of which there are 8. The first 6.1 is drinking water. You're all familiar with that. 6.2 is sanitation. Maybe you're not as familiar with the remaining 6. So 6.3 is water quality and wastewater, and that is managed by WHO. And then 6.4 is freshwater use and reuse of water generally, FAO. 6.5 is on water resource management, which is really important in the light of climate change, because we are seeing that precipitation patterns are changing. We're either having long periods of drought, or we're having much rain in very short periods. And then 6.6 is on the protection of water-related ecosystems. The remaining 2, 6.7, is international cooperation, basically mobilizing donors to provide external support to low and middle income countries. And then 6.8 is ensuring that communities are adequately involved in the management of water and sanitation programs. And this has been talked about at length. So how do we do this? To make it very simple and very short, It's in two ways. One is to support the government to strengthen its own systems, effectively just ensuring that there's improved and sustained provision and use of quality and efficient wash services. That is it. But of course, to get there are certain performance drivers that you need to look at. These might be ensuring that there are the right policies in place, ensuring that the financing mechanisms for the sector are appropriate, ensuring that the governance mechanisms of the sector are appropriate, that the management structures are appropriate, that the implementation capacity exists to implement government programs, and crucially, that communities are prepared to change their behavior and adopt facilitating behaviors and practices. So in short, I would say that is what the UN is here to support. The answer to your second question, I'm not going to go into because Engineer Vincent actually talked about it. He talked about the four issues, the weak capacity of abusers. He talked about political interference, let's call it what it is, and various other factors, but he also gave the solutions. So I think during the panel discussion, I'll talk about something else which does have a bearing on financing if there's time, because I think development as we know it today is a wicked problem. It is a really wicked problem. And in some ways, the way in which countries have set themselves up, we've set ourselves up and created a problem that almost has got no solution. I'm being very controversial now. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Odhiambo Makofi. Yeah, so I think now we are up for the discussion, general discussion, question, comments, and like to invite the first panelists to come here so that at least you can have discussion. So it's time for you participants to air questions, comments, all that. One thing which I would like to request you is try to be as brief as possible. Time is not on our side. Avoid to make these long stories. We all know these stories. Just tell us whether you're asking questions or would like to comment or would like to share the experience. I think that's all what we need. And like I'm saying, we wouldn't like to go on asking, rather making long stories. No, that's not something. The other most important thing is that when it's your time to contribute, just tell us your names and the organizations you're affiliated with. And importantly, you need to say, who are you targeting to in terms of asking question or contribution? We have almost like 30, 40 minutes for that, and then before we do the wrapping up. Who is going to be the first? I see so many hands now. Okay. Yeah. We also need to make sure that we balance the gender. You should not forget about that. Because sustainability is also about gender balancing and all that. We have one man and also a lady. That should be the... Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hezron Magambo. I work with the Department of Water Resources Engineering of the University of Dar es Salaam. I have 2 or 3 questions to the first panelist, and I'll start with my friend Kanyemkwa. This is more of to reflect on, it has been 2 decades now where we are using the water policy since 2002. The first one, it took only 1 decade to change and to gather quite a number of lessons from them. Do you think now it's about time to start looking into, or if not, to work on the new water policy that covers quite a number of things like issues of climate change and other things like that? And then the second question is to, I think, both Engineer Lydia and Raymam, my colleagues from the Ministry of Water. So this is more of in the face of climate change and water resources management for sustainability of water supply. I would like us to maybe discuss a little bit about now what is the role of the household in terms of water resources management. And this, of course, applies to the role of CBUSOs in the face of water resources management, seeing that they are not only users of the water, but they're also responsible to conserve that water, which is continuously becoming diminishing and diminishing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hezron. The next should be a lady. Yeah. Try to be very brief.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Junaida from Water Institute, attending my degree in Water Resource and Irrigation Engineering. I have my question goes to the second panelist, to Betha. You guys first, you are just doing good in providing water service, but I would like to ask you, you have been providing the service. Kerry has been talking about you are providing water points and by constructing and innovation and providing water points in Mbeya. So what are the plans do you have in other regions from our country? Because you have been talking about Mbeya and you have been working here in Tanzania since 1962. So what plans do you have, or what are you looking forward about other regions in Tanzania? Because you have been talking only in Mbeya. So what plans do you have, for example, in Dodoma, Singida? You know, Dodoma, Singida have been experiencing the scarcity of water. So what other plans or what strategies do you have in those regions in Tanzania? And my second question goes to Miss Betha also. When we are talking about the sustainability of water supply system, we start with the management of water resources. So what are the strategies do you have, or how do you collaborate with the water stakeholders, different countries or from different sectors to manage water resources in order to sustain water resources in a rural systems, in rural water supply systems.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. So next question. Okay. I just start there.
Yeah, thank you. Mine is not a question, but more of a comment. And I'm Devocatus Kamara. I'm the country director with the Life Water International. When you started the discussion, Dr. Richard, you mentioned the elephant in a room is sustainability. And you went first saying systems have been set in place. Rules have been put in place. Policies have been put in place. But yet sustainability is not happening to the extent that we are expecting. And I think that's where my comment and my contribution will come from. When you mentioned all the structures that the senior counsel, Honorable Simon, has just mentioned on all these policies, and I was more happy when you mentioned the issue of integration of sanitation and hygiene within our engineering infrastructure, because it always left out. But now, when you mentioned all these structures, including engineering, at the bottom, you ended up speaking of the community-based supply organization as an institution at the community level, which is expected to be leading the community in sustaining the water supply structures and in whatever we put in place. And along the discussion, I've heard of management of the water resources. I've heard of maintaining and sustaining the skills that we impart into that community. I've heard of technology that we put into those communities. I've heard the behavior, sustained behavior. You mentioned it twice on that one. And I'm adding more on sustaining the transformed mindset of the community. And now my big question comes in. How capable are our community-based water supply organizations capable of being able to transform our communities at household level to attain sustainability that we need. I think if we wanted to achieve and have the elephant out of the room, we should focus on enabling and building the capacity of the community-based water supply organization, rather than assuming that they are able.
Sure. So the issue of capacity, in various areas. I would like to pick up what Hans mentioned. The issue is the critical mass. How are we attaining that? Because without critical mass, in terms of capacity building, we have the issue. Thank you very much for your contribution. And maybe the panelists will be able to respond to that. Can we have another? Okay. This side, yes. I see the lady here in front is just having his view up.
Sorry, here are some questions from online again. Most of them are directed to Engineer Davis from RUWASA. So first one is, how does RUWASA guarantee water quality, especially when the CBOSO is responsible for covering the cost and considering there is a scarcity of water testing labs across the country? So water quality assurance. The second one is about how does RUWASA structure their capacity building for CBOSO? What kind of capacity is needed to ensure sustainability? The kind of capacity building RUWASA provides, is it long-term or is it time-bound? Is it one-off kind of capacity building? And then how does it address the supply chain challenges facing the CBOSOs? So all of these targeted to RUWASA.
Davis, eh?
Yes. And then another question to panel one, very much in line with what Frank shared. How is the government leveraging financing for water and sanitation in order to achieve SDG 6 and the national priorities for WASH? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what I'm going to do is that to have all the questions, and then I'll just leave it to the panelists to respond, and then we'll be wrapping up, and then we'll be done. I think there was a lady here.
Back again, thank you so much. First of all, my question is, we have been talking so much about construction of water supply system maintenance and repair, but largely we forgot about wastewater management. As we know that water is not a waste that we can discard. Water is a waste that we need to recycle it. As we know that we are required to sustain water because the generation is growing very fast. And as we see that the boreholes are being drilled very rapidly. So my question goes direct to panel one. What is the plan for the government? What are the measures should government plan to take in wastewater management so as to ensure that the future generation provided with a very equitable access of water and a very good sanitation in the water sector? Thank you.
Yes, the forgotten one, sanitation. At least now is coming up here. So the government and academia may need to comment on sanitation.
My name is Clara Godson-Selo from Arzi University. I have a question to the first panel. What is the efficiency of the postpaid system of a postpaid system in the water service that you provide at EPZ there? Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Clara, I'm not sure whether the panelists, were you able to get the question? Oh, okay, so they've just got it. Yeah, they've just got it. Next. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Joseph Nicholas. I'm a student from Water Institute, pursuing my bachelor degree in water resources and irrigation engineering. My question, I think I have a bunch of questions to Engineer Lydia.
Bunch of questions.
Yeah, but yeah, and I'm feeling sorry for her, but I'll ask 2 questions only.
Okay, that's generous of you.
Okay. She was saying about dreaming. I don't know that dreaming or vision. As a assistant director of in services delivery and management support, right? You said that the government has a dream. In the construction of the national grid. So we know that this is going to be a very big project, and for developing countries, a country with a strategic plan to meet all this water scarcity. To solve the problem of water, we need to have this national grid. So what are the specific plans and measures to take? Oh, it's just a dream. We need to know that because for a commercial city like Dar es Salaam, having a water scarcity is a very big shame. So we need to know what are the plans for this national water grid. But also, if we trace back, this is the second question. If we trace back for some 2 months ago, we have seen the minister of the water, I don't know.
The Minister of Water?
Yeah, Honorable Juma Aweso.
Juma.
Yeah.
Juma.
Yeah, he had to, okay. He had to stop this certain contractor who had a water supply project.
Okay.
So, and from the start, I've come to realize that contractor was from the local companies. I think it's Tanzanian. So it's a big challenge, especially in these construction areas. We have seen the local companies has a lot of challenges. Okay. At the same time, governments want to improve, to raise the construction industry, especially in Tanzania. But we have seen that these local companies, they become a very big challenge for various projects, especially we have seen in roads, in various buildings. So the question is, for effectively and efficiently water resource, water supply projects, as we are speaking of a big elephant here, sustainability of this rural water supply systems. What are the plans so that to enable, what are the plans to ensure these projects they become efficient, completed?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think in the interest of time, and I understand that there could be as many contributions as possible from the floor, but I would like to hand it to the panelists. Should you think you have more things to maybe ask whatever, because we have the refreshment, the social networking session, then that should be the moment that you can just have one-on-one with any one of the panelists for you to get much of the clarity on some of the issues that I've discussed. Let me now invite my panelists. We start with the panel 1. You start with Simon, Lydia. It just goes like that. And then you just respond to anything out of what is just coming from the audience. Start with Simon. Try to be brief because time, I think, is running very fast.
Yeah, I have got only one question, but I can say something on 2 issues. The direct questions to me was about the development of new water policy. I can declare here that we have already started the process and is at the level of decision making after complying with all issues regarding policy development. And we expect that by the end of this year, the new water policy will come into operation. The other issue which I want to contribute in terms of legal mind is the capacity of the local contractors. It is correct that there are some challenges regarding their capacity, But when we were started to implement Water Sector Development Program 1, we identified all contractors responsible for implementing water projects and they developed a plan to build their capacity. Although that was not very successful, but nationally, there is a policy that even for the contractors, the international contractors, which are implementing projects in Tanzania, they have to enter into a joint venture with the local companies so as to build their capacity. Therefore, we expect that after sometimes our local companies now will have the necessary capacity to implement even big projects. That is, I think I should say so. Regarding the issue of Ukamara, the elephant in the room, yes, it is a challenge. Sustainability is a challenge, and we try every day to deal all issues because it is a series of issues. But one thing which sometimes we are implementing at the level of the ministry is to do some sort of clustering. We can cluster a rural part with an urban part so that it can support the rural part, which may be the issue of capacity of technocrat and financing may be resolved. And the best example in Dar es Salaam is where Chalinze, we had a small water users association, Wamacha, but once we merged with Dawasa, those sustainability challenges now has been resolved. That is one strategy which we are using too. Thank you very much.
Lydia.
Thank you very much for the questions and for the contributions which you have come up with following our ongoing discussion. From what I heard from the contributors, mostly people need to hear government plans in how to accommodate households in climate change effects, plans to have money to construct, plans for financing, plans for the national water grid, and also you are talking about the contractors' plans to manage them. So, all in all, I wish to say that the government has plans in those areas. For example, if we look at how to accommodate households in dealing with climate change effects, we see from the rural part, the households that makes up the CBUSOs. And it is through households also we have something we call WUAs, water user associations in water resources, not in water supply. The ones in water supply, they are called CBUSOs. The ones in water resources, we call them water user association. It means a certain water source has several users. Some are irrigating, some are taking for water supply and everything. So we include, or rather we engage the community through this kind of association. And also households, there are certain different interventions that makes sure that people can use some cities in this world, they are using like 200 liters per person per day. Some people, like in our rural water supply design manual, we design for 25 liter per person per day. So it means these people who are used to using 200 liters, they are consuming too much water. You have to have some kind of interventions, and usually these are in urban areas whereby we have tariff which will regulate people. Like if you consume more, you pay more, so people can decrease their usage. That's the way to include communities to combat effects of climate change. And if you talk about financing, the government now I'll combine both the national water grid and the topic she was asking. The national water grid is really a dream because it's not there. That's why we call it a dream. We want it to happen. But there are already plans on the ground to realize it, whereby up to now we already have the pre-feasibility studies. We have pre-feasibility studies for most of the big water sources in this country, the lakes, the 3 lakes, all of us knows them, and also the rivers, like for Dar es Salaam. We have a full feasibility study already done for Rufiji River to bring water here. Therefore, it's a dream, but already we are working on it in order to realize it. And also the ministry is in the process of drafting something that we call Tanzania Water Investment Program. That in that program, we expect to attract more funding from private sector, from development partners, from all over the world, including the government itself, so that we can increase investment in the water sector.
Natosha.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Davis, please be brief.
Thank you very much. I mean, one gentleman asked about how households and CBUSOs are managing water resources. I think my colleague has just explained here. But eventually, I mean, essentially, you can, I mean, you know that in our rural areas, we basically have either farmers or livestock keepers or miners, small-scale miners. So those are the 3 activities, economic activities that are done in the rural areas. So these activities, if they are done on the side of where we get our water, that in the water sources, they can negatively affect either the quality or the quantity of water. So we do awareness raising, you know, just to tell them these activities, you're not supposed to do them either upstream of the river or around the river or around the water source if it's there. I mean, depending on the type of the water source that's being available at that point. So awareness is one of the intervention that is done for the people, whether they are households or they are members of the CBUSOs, to enable them to not to pollute or to affect the water that's available in rural areas. Now, the second question was, how is RUWASA guaranteeing water quality in rural areas? Now, the CBUSOs, yes, they don't have water kits, water quality kits, but CBUSOs are supposed to take on a quarterly basis, they take samples from their water sources and from their water points, from where people fetch water to take back to their homesteads. They're supposed to take water monthly and take it to a credible and accredited government laboratory. So it could be a private laboratory or a government laboratory. So they are supposed to take the water samples there. It gets tested there. And then the results of it, that's what informs the quality of water. So we are looking forward to enabling the CBUSOs have these water quality kits so that they can do that on their own on a daily basis. And so that they can detect maybe on the daily basis what has happened what has changed in the water quality. Another thing is how is RUWASA establishing the capacity needs for the CBUSOs, and how does it provide the capacity needs? I mean, how does it provide capacity building? Is it long-term or short-term? So for RUWASA, of course, does capacity needs assessment or assesses the data that it collects through the RSDMS. And through the data, you can establish, you can pinpoint, you can point where there is need for capacity building and what type of capacity building is needed. Now, provisioning of this capacity building can be done in-house using RUWASA staff, either at the regional or the district level, or it can be outsourced. By outsourcing, I mean maybe a private sector or an institution or consultant or whoever can be engaged to provide the capacity building on an area that has been identified. I think, those were the four questions that I had.
I think it's enough. Komakech again?
Okay, maybe I just mention the guys have addressed the issues well. I think I only want to talk about waste management. Mm-hmm. We always look at the engineer says 80% of the water that you consume come as waste, a rule of thumb that is used in the design in most cases. I think it is high time we revisit the term waste because waste or water that comes out after use is a valuable resource. There's nutrients, there's water, there's energy compact in it. So we have to start looking at how do we recover for reuse in various domains. One of the things that I see and we are involved in, and the government is also has come out with in the water sector development program, is town-wide planning or city-wide planning, rural planning. I think I would like to push it a little bit to Frank. He said we created a problem, so it will come there. How do we revisit the way we do things by planning prior on how resources can be used? And I've seen that in the water sector development program, there is a number of citywide inclusive or sanitation or wash plans that has to be prepared, different district plans that involve wash services to be planned, to be developed. So I think those are areas I wanted to comment on.
Thank you very much. David?
Yeah, I just will say two quick things. The first is we've talked a lot about CBOSO capacity building, but we haven't talked about accountability at all. And so as we look at CBOSOs and we have the governance side and we have the management side, when we look at the reality in the field, it's really the management side that has all the power. They have the money, they have the education, they have the title, even supervisor of the organization. And so oftentimes they're coming from outside of the community. So it provides a big issue with trust with the community. And so I think it's high time that we've looked at how to professionalize and capacitate people in the community to be able to manage themselves and professionalize them. Maybe that's taking them to TVET or some other program, but we need to create that trust and accountability in the CBOSO. Number two, if you have a bottle of Dawasa water in the back for me, and it's going to cost me 50 shillings to go get, I'm probably just going to stay here. But if you bring me a bottle of water, Kilimanjaro, and ask me for 50 shillings, I might buy it. So that deals with two things, quality of water and service. Are you bringing it to me? So I think we also have to look at those two things. Specifically, as we look at the percentages of certain districts, it's not just a flat percentage. We also have to think about what is the service and quality that we're providing to the communities.
Thank you very much, David. Very important point. The quality of the service matters quite a lot. Betha?
Thank you. I will reply to the two questions that were posed to me. One being, what are our ways forward to look into other regions? Of course, our goal of our project is to increase access to affordable and clean water supply service. And among the regions that had low coverage, including Bear region, where some of the district had coverage of below 30. So that is the drive why we have started the project in Bear. But that doesn't mean that we are not looking into other regions. But CRS mode implementation, regardless of the like internal fund, it's a donor driven organization. So we are also looking to scale. So once our funding increases, it means then we'll be able also to cover into other regions that at least in terms of coverage. The other question was on how do we collaborate with other stakeholders in terms of water resource management? Water resource management is part of our capacity building training that we provide to CBOSO, community leaders, and community as well. We are collaborating with Lake Lukwa Basin in Bear. We have Lake Lukwa and Lake Nyasa. We are collaborating in providing this training to make sure that community leaders are empowered to establish by laws
for management of water resource within their community, but also community member also educated not only in management of water resources, but also management of water that is being supplied. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betha. Swale, your final thoughts?
I'd like to touch base on the part where from where they said that people are not willing to pay. Okay, maybe we can copy from other countries within Africa, like Ghana, whereby they incentivized, this kind of paying for water. So each household every day would be given one bucket or 120-liter can for free, or even maybe 40 liters, and then for the rest, because they still need more, then they would pay for it. So I think that's one way to approach it. And when we talk about capacity building, it's not just about the technical aspect of it. There are small things which I've seen other organizations do, like simple bookkeeping, simple training them how to do simple irrigation with the water, and maybe they will see the value for money from this. Lastly, I would like to say is, as a player in the industry, for us, it's not just about money, but we actually also invest in training and capacity building. We are ready to work with the sector, different sector players, from the Ministry of Water to RWASA, on training them about this new technology, how to design especially solar-powered systems and water filtration and the likes. And also with the various learning institutions, where we can easily discuss with the manufacturers, partner with the manufacturers, just the way we've partnered with a couple of them, where we can actually bring, live systems to the universities, and they will learn how to design systems and how to operate these systems, so that when the students come out seeking for job opportunities, they're ready for the market. They don't have to come to work for GX, but in fact, maybe GX can kind of, for the lack of better words, use them to just expand our business, where they can sustain themselves, but then they can still come back and buy and get trained by us in the private sector.
Thank you very much, Swale.
So I talked about us creating a problem in development. I just want to in 2 or 3 minutes, explain this. If you think of governments, we are so used to saying, oh, the government is not doing enough. Yeah. But how does the government provide services? It's through the taxes that people pay. So let's imagine country X. It's not Tanzania, it's not Uganda, it's not Ghana, it's country X. The government collects 150 units per year. Okay? 100 units will be to pay the doctors, nurses, build roads, provide medicine, textbooks, etc. 50 will be to build more build more roads, build more schools, build more healthcare facilities, etc. Now the problem is this 50, the government can borrow to increase it. Yeah. So the government borrows another 100 units. So they've got 150 to build more roads, to build more schools. They only still have 100 to pay teachers. Development partners will come in and increase this by another 100. So they've got 250 to do more this year. But they've only got 100 to pay all these people and to provide those services. What happens next year? This goes up by 100 by 10. It becomes 110, but they've still got 300 here. So they build even more schools, even more healthcare facilities, even more roads to be maintained. You've now got 3,000 kilometers, when 2 years ago you only had 1,000 kilometers. The third year, it goes up to 120, this side. This side, you've got another 300. You're building bridges, which need to be maintained. You're providing more water, etc. Do you see where I'm going with this? within 10 years, this side cannot maintain all the investment that the government has put in on this side. And in most countries, people who are my age, and some others whom I'll not mention, when you come to Dar es Salaam, when you go to Kampala, when you go to Accra, you see there's been development. If you were away for 20 years, you come back and you say, wow, look at all of this. But if you lived in those countries 20 years ago and disappeared and came back, you will find actually the quality of services is poorer today than it was 20 years ago, because there's not enough on this side to maintain the level of service that the government has been investing in. Yeah. Too much investment, too little to support that investment. Is there an answer to this? I don't know the answer. But next time you think about the government, just remember this. It's a wicked problem, development.
That answer maybe, that question can be answered maybe by Comarkech. That was fascinating explanation on how is it that we need to have the support of the services. Whatever we are doing, we need to do the matching. Two sides have to be matched to make sure that one particular side is just balanced with the other one in terms of the service provision. Absolutely amazing.
By the way, sorry, just give me 30 seconds. For the young people here who might not understand this, you might be wondering, but why don't they match? A government cannot borrow to provide recurrent expenditure. It's not allowed.
It's not allowed.
You can only borrow for development. That is why there's an imbalance.
Only for development. The young guys, you have to take that into consideration. We are staying for a long period of time without the salary increase. Well, big clap for these guys. Gentlemen. That has been an absolutely amazing afternoon. And I think all of you here have benefited quite a lot with this event. Thank you very much, CRS, for organizing such an amazing kind of series. This marks now the end of our panel discussion. We are almost through, ready for refreshing. And I see you're all deserving for that. You've been hardworking, very attentive, interactive, and all that. So it's worth for you going into refreshment. Need to do a lot of this. A couple of takeaway highlights from me. Sustainability is a really big issue, and I think it's very clear. Elephant in the room. It should be that not only considering one particular dimension, the number of dimensions, the technology, the institutional policies, you name it. Capacity building, creating the critical mass is really very important for sustainability. Collaboration, integration, as well as coordination. Those are some of the issues that have to come in place. We have also to be mindful of the fact that sustainability, attaining sustainability is a process. It's not a one-time thing and then you say you are done. But importantly, whatever we are doing, we have to have what we call system thinking approach. Just looking at the water supply, rural thing as a system rather in isolation. I think in there we'll be able to get into the sustainability. So I think those were my takeaways and highlights in as far as the discussion this afternoon is concerned. I would like us, we give again the panelists the big hand, as well as to you. Yeah, of course I have to be very selfish for me and to myself as well. So the other items is that before we close, I was told that CRS has been generous enough. They are going to present some gifts to these able panelists. And then after that, we will be closing. And I'm advised that the government is the one that is going to do the closing. You were, of course, requested to do the closure on behalf of the government. And then after that, you will be going directly for the refreshment. So the next item is a presentation of the gifts.
Yes, okay. Just do what I'm told. While we're organizing the gifts, I want to acknowledge and thank all of our panelists. I want to acknowledge the students in the room because, you know, the accountability that the young people are holding the panel to it's the future of the country, right? So it's really inspirational. Keep asking questions, keep fighting. This is your country, your future. So thank you so much for being here, for participating and engaging. I'm sure this is just the smallest of tokens. Is it just to anybody one by one? What's my instruction? Oh, first the moderator. Well. Thank you so much. And for all the panelists, maybe one by one. Let me come up here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Lydia, thank you so much. Lovely to see a woman on the WASH panel. Thank you so much. You were really grilled, Davis. Thank you for your good sense of humor. Thank you, Hans. Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, David. Oh, Bertha, what? You get a raise. Thank you so much for coming. Frank, you really blew my mind at the end there. I'm going to use that example with my children. Thank you, everyone, so much. And I think I'll pass the mic now to Simon. Yes? Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. CRS staff, dear colleagues, panelists, the good moderator, you did the best. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I think we have a very fruitful session whereby we have learned a lot regarding the sustainability of rural water supply. We are all in agreement. We are fighting for this big elephant because water is a basic need and a right for everyone. For the government of Tanzania, access to water is a constitutional obligation as well as a legal obligation. When you read our United Republic of Tanzania Constitution, Article 9, you may find that state organs are required to direct their policies and the programs towards ensuring that the resources are used to improve the health and life of the people. But similarly, when you go to Section 4 of the Water Supply and Sanitation Act, which established the community-based water supply organization, is also providing that right to access of water is for every citizen in Tanzania. Therefore, this is a really obligation on the part of the government. But we can achieve this without collaboration with our stakeholders like CRS and the other stakeholders. The government has did all what we can to address previous challenges, including developing policies, laws, regulations, and guidelines. But despite that fact, we cannot avoid the emergence of new challenges. Therefore, we have to work day and day to make sure that all emerging issues and challenges, we address all of them together as one team. The government as well is very proactive. We have already in place a draft water policy, which I'm sure when we will start its operation, some of the challenges will be addressed in that policy. And I'm sure that strategic plans will fall for implementation of that policy, even reviewing the legal requirements where necessary to ensure that sustainability of rural water supply goal is achieved. We have just a few months, not more than 24 months, to achieve the target of 2025 of 85% for rural population. And at least now we are at seven something. We have a long journey, and we need to cooperate. I can just remember the presentation by my colleague from Liza from Ikiwamo village, who has said that since the creation of this earth, this world, that village had no water. It means that is a very serious challenge, which we need to address. We plan it today, but for a few years, there are other populations which need the same service. As if that is not enough, even the constructed projects will start to deteriorate. Therefore, we need to rehabilitate. Therefore, this is ongoing fighting until we get the universal access by 2030. Thank you very much for your active participation. And I think we all deserve a big clap. To see right, hopefully all issues which have been raised here, I think will be documented, and for your pleasure, you can share with the all relevant implementing authority so that an action may be taken to address those issues. And I think Minister of Water is one of them. Therefore, hopefully we receive some feedback from you regarding the issues which have been raised here. I'm assuring you that the Minister of Water is more than ready to cooperate with any stakeholder. And the Minister for Water, Honorable Juma Hamidu Aweso, has directed that our coordination unit at the ministry level should be enhanced so that it can undertake its functions very efficiently, so that there is no any stakeholder will be left behind when we are dealing with the water issues. Therefore, I think once that is in place, we may have a database of all stakeholders, and we will devise a mechanism on how efficiently we can collaborate together. Having said so, on behalf of the government, especially the Minister for Water, Honorable Juma Aweso, and my permanent secretary, Professor Jamal, I declare now this 60th anniversary learning event closed. And thank you very much. God bless you.
Ask questions. Don't give them a break.
Thank you so much for coming.
Recording stopped.
Well, I'll do the panelists first, then I'll jump out.